Hi folks, and welcome to my homework solution for episode 111 in Paul McWhorter's series on how to get the most from your Raspberry Pi Pico W. In this last episode, Paul introduced us to PyQt5 and writing small user interface programs on our desktop computers using PyQt5. At the end of that lesson, he asked us to convert what we learned in that lesson into a client-side program that would connect over Wi-Fi to a UDP server that's running on the Raspberry Pi Pico W. And then use a couple of the widgets that we created in that desktop application to control some LEDs on the Pico W. So let's do a demo of that first. And I'm disconnected, so I need to connect power to get things started. I need to get one of Paul's fancy power circuits that clip onto the end of the board, but I don't have one right now. I'm using what came in the kit. So I plug that in. You'll see the onboard LED is blinking while it's connecting to the network. As soon as it does connect, it will go solid. As soon as it's solid, I know that I can run my client-side software on the desktop. So we'll run that over here. You can see the PyQt application pop up. And then we've got 4 buttons at the top. The red button controls the red LED, green and yellow control the LEDs respectively. Off turns them all off and actually shuts the server down. So let's look at the green button first, because that's a simple toggle function. Every time I hit the green button, it will toggle the LED state, whatever it happens to be. So I hit it again, it turns it off. We'll turn it on, and the yellow button is a toggle also. The yellow is on. Red button is a little bit different. When you hit the red button, you can see that it stays depressed. It looks like it has been set. And the little messaging that I'm doing here is a little bit different too, right? When you hit the green button, it just says green button clicked. But when you hit the red button, it will say whether the red button has been set or reset. So there's some built-in understanding of what the state of the button is, unlike the green button and the yellow button. So I did a little read ahead here on how to kind of capture that state and take action on the different states of the button, either clicked or not clicked. All right, so red button, just a little different. These are just toggles, but in any case, when you hit the off button, it's going to send a command to the server to turn off all the LEDs. And in fact, it shuts the server down too. You can see that the connect LED, the onboard LED, has gone off. That's a little abnormal for client behavior. Clients aren't supposed to be able to shut the server off. But I find that my network likes it better when I'm debugging to just behave that way. So that's why I do that. And then lastly, when you close the window on the PyQt application, it will close the UDP client and halt the client program. All right, so that's the demo. Let's look at some of the messaging first. I think that's reasonable. First thing we did was click a green button. This says we sent a toggle green command to the server, and the Pico server responded with green LED was toggled. We did that a couple times in a row. The yellow button did the same thing. Red button was a little different. The first time we clicked that, it said red button set. And I sent, as opposed to a toggle command, I sent a red on command to the server, and it responded with red LED set. And I did a red off, and when I hit the button again, it said, yes, we're going to reset it. I do a red off command, and then the Pico responded with red LED reset. And then finally, at the end of this, we did the off button, and it sent an exit command to the Pico server. The server replied with the fact that it received that and that it's going to disconnect. It indeed disconnected. And then the last thing was when we closed our window, we closed the UDP client and halted our client software. All right, so what's different in this code versus what Paul taught us in the last lesson? Not a whole lot. Primarily, we got to turn this into a client. So the first thing that we do here, apart from importing the socket, the first thing that we do here is connect to the network, right? We need to know what the IP address is of the server, and we get that from the connect message on the server side, which you guys didn't see. And the port address is we've mutually agreed upon, etc. You guys know how to do all of this. We've done it, I think, many times in the past in this series. I did kind of bundle up the UDP send functionality and the UDP receive functionality into two little functions because I used them repeatedly in the button handlers. I thought that would be an easy way to do it. So I pass it a specific command that I want to send. It sends that command to the server. And then the receive command waits for the response and then passes the decoded version of that response back to the calling program. We'll skip over the widget handlers for just a second because I want to show you something that's slightly different in the setup. The easiest thing to modify was to add another label which indicated what kind of actions I was taking with the buttons. You saw that in the demo there, but just a kind of a straightforward addition to what Paul taught us to do with the when he made the slider label. So I made a button group label, and I used that in the button handlers. You'll see in just a moment. But I think more importantly, just a difference in how we set up the red button. All right, the green buttons and yellow buttons and off button here, that's set up exactly the way Paul did it before. This is slightly different in that I set up the checkable capability here. So there's a characteristic of the button, the Qt button object that you can turn on and off with this set checkable feature. So I turned that on, and what that means is that the state, whether it is checked or not checked, will now be passed to the clicked handler, and probably other handlers within the button object too. But you can now check that and understand whether it's been pressed or not pressed, checked or not checked, and then take different actions based on that. So we'll go up to the button handlers here, and I'll take green for an example to begin with. The first thing, once a green button is pressed, we send a message to the console. I set the text on the new button label to say green button has been clicked. I identify the command that I want to send is called toggle green, and the server has to interpret toggle green and do the right thing on that end. I use the UDP send function that I created, and I send the toggle green command there. Then I pull the data back from the UDP receive function that I wrote, and I print that out. Right. So that's fairly straightforward application of the code that Paul kind of taught us in the last lesson. Red button is a little bit different. Because I have the set checkable set to true, a value can be queried that will tell us whether the button has been checked or not. And if it has been checked, then we want to send a command that says turn the red on. The red LED on. All right, so we do that. And if it has not been checked, we want to send a command that says the red LED, turn the red LED off. So the server is sensitive to the red on command and the red off command. They function a little bit differently. But otherwise, that's how you get that difference in behavior between the green and yellow LEDs and the red LED button that is now checkable. Okay, so that's the code on the client side. On the server side, it's also pretty straightforward. You set up your LEDs, you connect to the network, just like we've been taught to do before. If it is connector, you set up the UDP server, and you bind it to the server IP and port that we agreed on. And then, assuming that you are able to make the connection, you drop into a serving loop. And in this serving loop, you're going to look for commands from clients, and you're going to take the appropriate action on the Pi Pico and send an appropriate response. In this case, the commands that we're looking for are red on, red off, toggle green, toggle yellow, and exit, and we'll do different things based on which of those commands that we have received. In the case of red on, of course, we turn the red LED on. We construct a return data string that says Pico server red LED set. We encode it, we send it back. Right. All of these function in the same way. The exit is a little bit different, as I mentioned before. We turn the serving function off because we're now going to exit the serving loop, and then we send a data string back to the client that says, hey, I got an exit command from you and I'm going to disconnect. and send that back. And then indeed you do that. You exit the serving loop, and then you shut down the server. You turn the LEDs off, and if you are connected, you want to close the server and disconnect from Wi-Fi, and then halt the program. And that's it. Anyway, thanks for watching, folks, and we'll see what Paul has in store for us this coming week. Thanks.